Last week I introduced a concept to you called the process of acceptance. It's not a new process, it's not a new concept. It was very well defined for us by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her very famous book on death and dying. She defined 5 stages to the process of acceptance: anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, when we receive bad news, experience an untoward event or a negative event, we don't necessarily go through that process sequentially. In other words, take those 5 stages in the way that they were listed. We may skip a stage, we may bounce around, we may get stuck in a stage, and some people never make it to acceptance because they get stuck in a stage. And then there are others who may bounce back and forth between 2 emotions before they finally resolve it and reach acceptance. What I want to talk to you today, though, about is anger, the first stage. If you receive the news you're fired, well, you would probably get pretty angry. There are other things that happen in our lives that lead to this series of events. Webster defines anger as a strong feeling of displeasure and usually associated with antagonism or rage. Synonyms include ire, fury, wrath, rage, and indignation. Those all tend to be different levels of intensity in our actions towards anger. If our intensity is high, it can lead to rage. If our intensity is low, it could be something as simple as indignation. How could this possibly happen to me? I can't believe it. Whatever the definition, whatever the synonym, anger is a very real emotion, and there are varying levels of intensity to anger. Now, I believe that the level of intensity to which we act with anger is a learned response. Now, you may think, how can that possibly be? I never learned how to become angry. Well, that's true. You never learned how to become angry, but you learned the level to which you take it to. You taught yourself, and that's how you react. Now, let me talk a little bit to you about the difference between react and respond. If you were to take an antibiotic for an infection, and you had an allergy to that antibiotic, you would react to the antibiotic. You would have an allergic reaction. Now, that allergic reaction could make you feel miserable. It could be as mild as just itching, or it could even lead to death. Now, if you took that antibiotic and it got rid of the infection for you, then you responded to the antibiotic. That's a much better way to have it act towards you than to have it react towards you. So there is a difference between react and respond. Which one do you prefer? Now, getting back to the level of intensity to anger as being a learned response, I believe that negative reinforcement is the cause for it. Now, a baby does not have intense rage as an action with anger when they are born. They either see it, or they learn it, or they experience it in a negative way. Look at a temper tantrum. How you, as a parent, treat a temper tantrum from your child is one I'm not trying to talk about today. There are so many different philosophies of how to do that. That's not what I'm here for. But a child can get angry, but when they get to a temper tantrum, it is either stopped by the parent or allowed to go on. It may recur, and as it recurs, it becomes negative reinforcement to the fact that, yes, I can get away with that. A temper tantrum in a child is bad enough, but in an adult, when it becomes rage, it is certainly a different situation. So if anger, when allowed to become intense, is a learned response, how do we learn to manage it? Now, I purposely said the word manage. I didn't say control. You can't control anger, but you can manage it when it occurs because, first of all, it is a natural emotion. So how do you do that? There are triggering events that occur that will cause our intensity of anger to go up or go down depending upon how we've handled it in our lives. So when that triggering event occurs, what you need to do is you need to stop. You need to be aware of what's going on. You need to be aware of how you're reacting or how you're responding. Take a deep breath, think about it, and then respond. Don't react. If you start screaming immediately when your kids do something wrong, then you're reacting. but you taught yourself how to do that. So the first thing that you do is be aware of what you're doing. Stop and decide how you're going to react. When you give yourself that chance to stop and look at it, you will eventually retrain your subconscious to respond and not to react. And you will act in a different manner. This is one of the basic premises of stress and anger management. But I'll tell you, it can have very serious effects on you physically and emotionally when you allow a reaction as opposed to a response. And you also, at that time, because your intensity has become so strong, you can lose your focus on what you want to do, and it takes you that much longer to resolve it. So am I saying that anger is bad? Absolutely not. It is an emotion that we are born with. It is the first stage of the process of acceptance. But what I'm telling you is try to manage it better. And here are a few simple steps that I can think of to just help you along the way. Number one, be aware of how anger affects you. Number two, stop, look, and listen. Number three, respond. Don't react. If you learn to respond and not to react, your heart and your blood pressure will be very thankful that you did that. So join me next week where we're going to talk about denial.